Hello and welcome to Canvas the Niger Delta Roundtable, where I discuss the future of a region immensely blessed. Every week, we give time to reflecting on topics relevant to the development of the Niger Delta and her people. And on this week's edition of Canvas, we're doing precisely that as well, discussing how to take the region to a more promising future. And do note the program is sponsored by the operator of the NNPC SPDC Total Energies Active Joint Venture, the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, headquartered here in Port Harcourt. Many thanks for joining. I'm Adedayo Ilushakin. Now for this week's edition, our topic is Shell's unwavering commitment to Nigeria, a journey of economic growth and sustainable development. For over 6 decades, Shell has been a cornerstone of Nigeria's economic landscape, contributing significantly to the nation's growth and development. From the bustling cities to the serene communities of the Niger Delta, Shell's initiatives have touched countless lives, fostering progress and sustainability. On this edition of the program, we will explore how Shell's investment in education, infrastructure, and community development have paved the way for a brighter future. We will hear from a leader in Shell who will share insights into the company's ongoing projects and their impact on local communities. Join us as we delve into the stories of empowerment, innovation, and resilience that define Shell's journey in Nigeria. Together, we will uncover the strides made in promoting sustainable development and economic growth, ensuring a prosperous future for all. So stay tuned and join us for an enlightening and inspiring discussion on Shell's unwavering commitment to Nigeria. Let's embark on this journey of progress and sustainability together. Again, this week's topic, Shell's unwavering commitment to Nigeria, a journey of economic growth and sustainable development. And my guest is Igor Wele. Igor Wele is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He's a director of the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited. Igor Wele is also the General Manager, Corporate Relations, for Shell Operations in Nigeria. Igor Wele, hello to you. Welcome to Canvas On Air.
Hello, Dayo. I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
It's always a delight speaking with you, really, because if there are a handful of people who are passionate about the Niger Delta and its development, you definitely fit that bill.
Agreed. I'm also from the Niger Delta, as you know, so it's about us, it's about our lives and our future also.
So let's get right to it then.
All right.
Very first question. Let's address the elephant in the room. Is Shell leaving Nigeria?
I'll answer that the opt-in time. No, Shell is not leaving Nigeria. Shell companies in Nigeria, there are about 4 entities there. 4 entities. The Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria, Shell Nigeria Exploration Production Company Limited, SNEPCO. You have Shell Nigeria Gas Limited, and then you have Daystar Power. We also have a stake in Nigeria LNG. Shell BV Gas, Shell Gas BV has 25.6% of NLNG shareholding. And then we also have Olon. Olon is owned by both SPDC and SNEPCO by guarantee. So we have 6 entities there I just spoke about. So indeed, it's just like saying Dayo owns 6 houses, he sold 1, so he's now homeless. So if we have 6 entities, there's a transaction relating to one SPDC, which everybody knows about. And then a lot of people translate that to mean Shell is leaving Nigeria. I don't think that's correct.
Now, all that sounds very well and good, but maybe somewhat theoretical. But physically speaking, in an evidentiary manner, what is there? What tangible thing can one still hold on to convince further, if you will, that Shell is remaining in Nigeria?
A lot of things. Let me talk a bit about what those entities do and will continue to do, apart from SPDC, of course. So SNEPCO, they currently operate Deepwater Gulf of Guinea, producing just over a year ago. We celebrated their 1 billionth barrel, SNEPCO, and that business is still there, very, very strong. Shell Nigeria Gas supplies gas to industrial customers in Ota, in area just around us here. And they're doing a lot of things also in Yenagoa. Nigeria LNG, of course, Train 7 is being built as we speak. Daystar Power, just fully acquired by end of 2022. Already they are in West Africa, delivering integrated solar solution, mainly to also industrial customers and companies. So those things are going ahead. Nothing is going to stop. So if you're looking for concrete evidence that we're still in Nigeria and we're still here to create value, I think those are, more than enough evidence that that's the case.
A lot has been said regarding Shell's contributions to the economy of Nigeria. We've had countless conversations and discussions on the subject matter. What is the level, in real terms, of Shell's contributions to Nigeria's economy? Because while it appears obvious to others, for some reason it appears a contentious issue for some others.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, we are talking about the energy sector, which actually contributes the most in terms of budget revenue. So about over 70% of the budgets we have in this country comes from that source. We talk about foreign exchange. That's actually the industry that brings, or the sector that brings most of the foreign exchange into the country. And the Shell is a leading company in that leading sector. So that tells you a lot. Now to some specific numbers. Last year, because when we talk about contribution to economy, one key source is taxes and royalties. So in 2023, $1.09 billion was contributed by SPDC and SNEPCO in terms of royalty and taxes.
Can you mention that figure again?
$1.09 billion. So I mean, you can convert that to Naira. Yeah, in 1 year, in 2023. That is significant. Also, if you look at Nigerian content development, contracts worth $1.9 billion was awarded to Nigerian registered companies in 2023 by SPDC, SNEPCO, and Shell Nigeria Gas. That's also significant. As we speak, over 2,500 people work for Shell companies in Nigeria. 96% of those are Nigerians. And we have about 9,000 plus contractors working for us also. That is significant value. If you look at host community trust, because that's another thing that is key, particularly to people of this region, we are leading in that particular space in terms of implementing the PIA HCDTs. As we speak, we have 31 fully incorporated HCDTs already. And we've already paid out about 16 billion naira and $31 million to those HCDTs. If you put the two together, it's about 62 billion naira if you convert the dollar elements to naira. That's a lot of money. And of that money, already 18 HCDTs have put about 4.9 billion in their reserves account with nominated fund managers. So that is value, a lot. Not to talk of contribution to NDDC. Last year, SPDC and partners over $100 million. SNEPCO and partners about $40 million. That's a lot there. So, yeah. It's right to say we've contributed and continue to contribute significantly to the economy of this country.
Now, touching on some of the figures you just mentioned, over $1 billion in contracts to local contractors. You mentioned Shell,
$1.9 billion.
1.9, precisely. And you mentioned that Shell has 9,000 contractors, am I right? Yeah. So, I know that
Talking about contractor staff.
Oh, okay, brilliant.
2,500 staff, and then about 9,000 plus contractor.
Correct. So $1.9 billion in contracts. Yeah. What percentage of those figures went to local indigenous contractors or businesses?
All that is to Nigerian registered companies. So that's really what we are talking about. Yeah.
$1.9 billion.
Billion, yeah.
Nigerian registered
SPDC,
companies.
SNEPCO, and Shell Nigeria Gas. That's a lot, right?
Absolutely. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, actually. Still doing the math in my head. That's why I seem to be stuttering a bit. Yeah. However, every business has its challenges. As you identified, the oil and gas industry is a very prominent one, possibly the most prominent industry in Nigeria. And for a number of reasons, varying, I suppose, but also touching on the fact that it has a lot of attention on it. It also happens to be, I suppose, one of the industries or the number one industry riddled with the most challenges as well, or issues. So, with Shell's operations in Nigeria, what are some of the biggest challenges that Shell has had to contend with, and how has it impacted Shell's operations in the country?
Okay, I think first of all, it's good to just discuss the economic operating environment generally, because it's not just Shell, it's not just energy sector. The operating environment in Nigeria is difficult generally for all businesses. So sometimes when we zero in so much on one company or one sector, it looks like every other person is having fun, but that's not the case. So we have a difficult operating environment. Companies have left and are still living in Nigeria. We are right now in Transomadi, yeah? That's where this studio is. And I know how Transomadi looked and used to be some decades ago. It's a very different story today. So the challenge is not just for the energy sector or indeed for Shell. The challenge is a general one for operating environment. Having said that, what are the biggest challenges we face? Insecurity is one. Investors want secure environments to carry out their business. So insecurity does not help in any way, shape, or form. That is one. Secondly, rule of law is key. You want predictability around rule of law. You want, to be sure that where there are disputes, where things need to be resolved, can be resolved transparently and quickly. That's also important. You also need competitive and stable fiscal terms for you to do business. You want to know, if I invest this much, this is what's going to happen. You need to have that predictability. You also need a stable polity, in terms of politics, governance. So those are some of the biggest challenges that not just Shell, not just the energy sector, that businesses generally in Nigeria face, big, small, and all that, yeah.
Besides, some of the issues that you have raised, or those challenges, are things that could be addressed or redressed by government intervention, policies, not just formulation, but very importantly, implementation. However, for the people, for the regular folks, the average Joe and Jane out there, the people in the communities, the people of Nigeria, of the Niger Delta, do we have any roles to play specifically to ensure that businesses thrive? And I'm glad you mentioned that whatever challenges are being experienced now is not peculiar to the energy sector or to Shell for that matter. So what are our responsibilities as a people to ensure continued investment and sustained development in our communities in the Niger Delta?
Yeah, all the things I mentioned earlier, when you talk about operating environment, attracting and keeping investors, it's about the people. You can't have everything going wrong without the people, contributing to that. So I think we all have a role to play. The first thing is, we need to follow the right channels, even where you have grievance. If you have a grievance, follow the right channels. This week I had at least 3-4 big meetings with community stakeholders in the office to resolve issues. And we encourage that. People have issues, they write you, they send an email, and then they come for a meeting, and then you resolve it. So it's important that people follow those channels. It's really, really critical. What else? Generally, just support, provide the enabling environment, have discussions as stakeholders, and obey the law. It's something as simple as that. For instance, we talk about sabotage. Somebody waking up and deciding to go and sabotage critical national infrastructure. That's not the government, that's an individual or a group of individuals. So make the right choices, do the right things, think end to end. Some of the things we are looking for, why do things that will stop those things from coming? If you destroy those infrastructure, if you stop the companies from working, where are you going to get jobs from? Where is the contract going to come from? We talked about the 1.9 billion. If the companies are not working, where would those opportunities come from? And it's people that do those wrong things that cause, that deprive all of us the value we should have derived from the business. I still go back to some decades ago when some of us left school in the 90s. Getting a job was not that difficult, particularly if you're in Port Harcourt, you're in Warri, or in Eket, because of the energy sector. Those are like the hubs, and it was easy. By the time you walk down Transomadi from one end to the other with your CV, you'll most likely pick up a reasonable job and go back home. But over the years, we made the wrong choices. It's not just government. People have made the wrong choices. Yeah, militancy, all sorts of things that are not helpful, to business growth and all that. It is human beings that make those decisions. Youths going to project sites to stop work and ask to be paid, that's not government. Those are people making the wrong choices, and that affects business.
Let's talk about that a bit. The choices that we make as a people. You used strong words like sabotage and interference and all of that. And I've had cause to have conversations with people from different walks of life, social status, even intellectual status as well, in the Niger Delta here, as to why we make those choices, why we sabotage businesses, not just in the oil and gas sector. And I'm glad you mentioned Transamadi a while ago. We had a cross-section of industries literally littering the length and breadth of Transamadi. A lot of them have disappeared now. Some of it could be attributed to government policies, actions or inactions, but a lot also can be credited to our actions as a people as well. Now, I get different responses as to why those choices are made, but one particular response that seems to cut across, most persons I have conversations with is we're disenchanted with what's going on. We can't reach government. So if government is not responsive to what our cries and our concerns, then let's address those that we can see, those that we can touch, the businesses, the shells of this world, for example. If government will listen to us, then let's block off a shell installation. Let's destroy some infrastructure. That way we'll get attention. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with giving feedback. And like I told you about the meetings I had this past week. So we are open to it. We encourage it. People have to be able to give feedback when they think things are not going well. The issue is how. The challenge is how. How do you do it? It's like saying, I have a disagreement with my wife and I destroy the whole family and pull everywhere down. That's the problem. So if you are not happy, you can write a letter, you can go to the government, you can send an email, you can request for a meeting. What we are saying is going to shut down a facility, going to destroy a facility is not a wise way to react when you think you have a grievance. That's the point we are making. And I think that's essentially why we started Canvas in 2017, to say let's try and provide a platform for more constructive engagement between stakeholders and the company. Yeah. So for me, it is the how. The challenge most times is the how. You cannot, take the wrong choices and then blame it on, I wasn't happy, something happened. It is about how do you go about it. And that's why, for instance, we have things like ESCOCO. We have a system. Yeah, we used to manage correspondences with stakeholders. For every letter we get, every correspondence, we try to make sure we respond. Because our core values are honesty, integrity, and respect. That respect is key for us because indeed, it's respectful that when people give you feedback or when people lay a complaint, you get back to them and explain. So for me, it's really the how dial. It's not, if you have a grievance, of course, express it, but expressing a grievance and going to destroy a facility, they are two different things.
Now, for others, or for some others, it's a sense of wanting to be a part of the process, or what they consider to be the huge value chain that the oil and gas industry, or even other industries for that matter, does offer. You mentioned a while ago, $1.9 billion in the last year spent on contracts, Nigerian registered businesses. Awarded, to Nigerian registered businesses. You also mentioned 2,500 staff in Nigeria, 9,000 contract staff. So, once again, for some others, it's being a part of that process. So what percentage or what of those numbers or those figures, to what extent are Niger Deltans and Niger Delta businesses a part of this $1.9 billion awarded to businesses, the 2,500 staff, 9,000 contract staff as well involved in the business and in the value chain?
A lot. I think that is the big picture. We need to start looking at the big picture. What if we had 10 companies like SPDC or Shell in Nigeria? What would happen? How do you bring more value in? I think that's the question. I went to Bonny some months ago. Flew into Bonny. I saw LNG, huge infrastructure. I saw the terminal, big. And I told these people, how can we get more of this in the Niger Delta? Because that value will remain there. Those investments are there. You can see it. There's no way value will not be generated from those investments way into the future for all stakeholders. So my challenge is, how do we get more investors to come into our country, to come into the Niger Delta, to create more opportunities? That's really the objective. That's the big picture there. And that's what we need to start seeing. Instead of going after the few we have, chasing them away, making things more difficult. How do we become, very accommodating? How do we become the destination of choice for investors? That's really important. It's almost like a courtship. What do we do to attract the right partner? When they come, how do we keep them so that we can keep having, good relationships, have a blessed marriage, and continue to celebrate and create big memories for ourselves into the future?
Why should I care about the future that I may not be part of? Why should my focus not just be to grab by whatever means, whatever it is I can get right now? Why should I be concerned about this future you talk about that I may not, once again, I may not even be a part of?
That's the big difference between successful societies and those that are not that successful. So, where you think short term, you need to think long term. So if you have that view, then you're just looking at today. And of course, you know what that means. You will not get, ultimately, you will shortchange yourself. So I think we need to switch from looking at it today to saying, the long term. How can we do the right thing so that we can get value sustainably? That view of life means the person doesn't care about his kids. I want to have it today and then let my kids have nothing tomorrow. So I think we need to really change it to say, what can we do? What did we do some decades past to bring these businesses into Nigeria? What were those conditions that brought them? Where did we lose it? What do we do differently to bring them back and to keep them for the long term? I think that's the way we need to look at it. It's a long-term thing, Dayo. It's a long game. It's not a short-term game.
I've known you for a while, and you're a very optimistic person, especially when it concerns the Niger Delta. However, there are others who are not, who do not share your optimism. And you said a while ago, you ask people, why can't we have 10 shells in Nigeria? Why can't we have several such LNG installations or facilities spread across the Niger Delta region? Do you really see that, or do you just say that to try to motivate and inspire people? Do you see a Niger Delta that could have several LNG facilities everywhere and 10 shells and the rest of it, and a vibrant and booming economy that can compete with similar economies anywhere in the world?
Why not? We were headed there some decades ago. We were headed there before we started making very wrong choices that basically, just cut that journey short and put us on a wrong road we're traveling now. We were headed there, and it's possible. Very possible. Why do I say that? Resources are there, the people are there, the market is there. And if those other things I mentioned earlier are also there sustainably, then you can achieve what you just described. If you have rule of law, if you have security, if you have competitive fiscal terms, if you have stable polity, we can even go beyond that. But if you don't have it, of course, maybe you have what we have today. And the challenge is this: once the investors turn their back, it takes a long time. You have to prove yourself, you have to demonstrate that indeed things have changed, and it takes a long time. And then it's their call. They are not just waiting for you to say, oh, I've repented, please come back. They have to check. So if you ask if I believe that's possible, yes, I do. And we're actually headed there at a point. We made the wrong choices. Things didn't go well. We lost our way. We can still find our way and get back there, I believe.
It is Converse and Niger Delta Roundtable, brought to you by SPDC. On this edition, we're discussing Shell's commitment to Nigeria. We'll go for a break. When we return the conversation, we'll continue. Do please stay with us.
Our yellow and black markers indicate pipeline and flow line right-of-way boundaries. Your activity could impact on the buried high-pressure hydrocarbon pipelines and flow lines, leading to possible leaks and explosion. Please keep off. Do not engage in sand mining or any form of excavation, pipeline vandalism, oil theft, and bush burning within pipeline and flow line right-of-way. Do not farm, trade, or locate any business on pipeline and flow line right-of-way. It is against the law to apportion land, sell, or build on pipeline and flow line right-of-way. Maintain a setback distance of at least 30 meters or about 100 feet from the right-of-way boundaries always. We care for your safety and that of the environment.
This message is brought to you by the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited. SPDC, operator of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company NNPC Limited, Total Energies, and Ajib Joint Venture.
Hello and welcome back. It is Canvas, the Niger Delta Roundtable, and as usual, we're discussing the progressive development of the Niger Delta region. I'm Dio. The program is brought to you by SPDC as well. And as I mentioned at the start of this week's edition, we're still discussing Shell's unwavering commitment to Nigeria. So in spite of whatever it is you may have heard from whoever it is or seen written by some person posted on social media, Shell remains committed to Nigeria, as I had my guest explain just a while ago. Speaking of, my guest is still here. Igor Well is the director with Shell and the general manager corporate relations Shell companies in Nigeria. Igor, great to have you here once again.
Thank you, Dio.
Reportedly, Shell makes its, and I'm privy to this document. I've seen the documents, I've seen the numbers, I've seen the figures. Shell makes its highest social investment expenditure globally. Not in West Africa, not in Africa, globally in Nigeria. Could you expatiate on that, and where does it all go?
I like that. Okay, let me just say, yeah, that's correct. So first of all, the way we structure our social investments is along teams. So we have, based on needs assessment, we have 4 key themes we focus on. Health, of course, obvious. Education, enterprise development, and then infrastructure. So those are, you see, most of the things we do follow these themes. Secondly, we have 2 types of social investment. We have voluntary SI, social investment. That's our own, based on the themes, the needs and assessment we do the social investment. We also have mandatory or statutory social investments. I talked about NDDC. 3% of our budget every year goes to NDDC. It's also social investment. It's a mandatory social investment. I talked about HCDTs, Host Community Development Trust, where we put 62 billion naira as we speak. It's also a mandatory social investment. You have the education tax and the rest of them. It's important to understand how it works. So where does this money go, like you asked? Education, scholarships. Last year, SPDC, SNEPCO, SNG, we put more than $3 million into scholarships. That's a lot of money. If you convert to Naira, it's over 4 billion. Yeah, that's a lot of money into scholarships. So we have our credit to career scholarships, we have university grants, we have secondary school grants across our operating host communities, and also across the country for SNEPCO and SNG. That's important, that's education. Recently, we commissioned an ICT center, just some weeks ago, in a school in Bauchi. Yeah. World-class, ultra-modern facility commissioned. Those are the investments we make, the kind of significant investments we make in education. Some months ago, we were in Niger Delta University, Bayelsa State, to commission a modern library built by SNEPCO, Nigerian Content Board, NNPC, and our co-venturers. Significant. I was there. The Deputy Governor Bayelsa was there, and he was full of, appreciation for the investment that has been made in Bayelsa State. So education is one area where we put a lot of money, a lot of money. Healthcare, also very important. When you talk about healthcare, the first thing that comes to mind is our popular Health in Motion program. Right from year 2000 or so when we started it, over 1 million persons have benefited from the Health in Motion program, where we take experts with their equipments, with medicine and all that, we take it to communities to deliver service to people who require it. Very, very popular, over 1 million. Last year, we reached more than 17,000 people with the Health in Motion program. Very important. We have our popular health insurance program here in Obio. That's something that just gives me joy all the time. Gives me a lot of joy. Go there. Sometimes I just drive down there and look at what they're doing. Most people prefer to go there now for their wives, just expectant moms to go to deliver, because they are sure of the quality, they are sure of the service, and it's affordable. Very, very important. So healthcare is another key thematic area for us. Enterprise development, we have our global LiveWire program, which helps us. We take people, youths mostly, and coach them, mentor them, and also give them startup funds, and then monitor. So we don't just give and turn away. We actually monitor to make sure that they are doing the right things and the business is growing. That's also important. Infrastructure development, also important. Last year, we did something that really gives me a lot of joy and pride as a Nigerian, where NMPC, SNEPCO, co-venturers went to Murtala Mohammed Airport, Wing E, the E-Wing, and we actually remodeled the arrival hall. It's a joy to be here. I've seen people on social media post it and say, oh, we don't believe this is Nigeria. This looks really good. It's a beautiful place to behold. The experience has completely changed. So if you're asking where the money is going, that's where the money is going. The mandatory ones, of course, we pay over to NDDC, the 3% of budget. Like I said last year, that's over $100 million paid to NDDC, by SPDC, and about 40 million or so by SNEPCO. That's a lot of money. Just convert it to Naira, a lot. SCDTs I already talked about. 62 billion Naira paid to 31 SCDTs already, as we speak, for 2022 and 2023. So that's where the money goes.
You mentioned the statutory social investments, but they are non-statutory ones. So these are voluntary. Shell identifies what we need to put money into, and of course, you get inputs from the communities as well. Oh, we need this, we need that. You have a process, you sift through, and then you respond to some of these calls as well. However, once again, Shell is a global organization. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Shell's investment globally is not largest in Nigeria. So if Shell doesn't have its largest investment in Nigeria, because it makes sense if I were to think where a person has their largest investment, because where a person's heart is where their attention would be as well. So you would want to put the largest concentration of your social investment where you have your largest investments. But it's not the case. So there appears to be a contradiction here. Why are your largest social investments in Nigeria, even though your largest investments are not in Nigeria?
Do you know the reason? Mandatory SI, statutory, really required SI. In most countries, I don't think they rely so much on companies like Shell to do basic stuff, infrastructure, health, education. So if you strip out the statutory one, maybe the picture will change. And that also goes back to when I talk about the competitive fiscal terms and attracting businesses. By the time you keep taxing, keep putting burdens on business, they look at all this before they decide where to put their money. So it might not really be a very good thing. Yeah, but the reality is that because of the statutory SI, we're actually number one. But should that be the case? Is that sustainable? Is that good for us long term? We talked about long term, short term in the past. I don't think so. Because what it means is, as an investor, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to pay my tax, I'm going to pay royalty, I'll do my voluntary SI, then I have, a slew of statutory SI on top of that. I hear National Assembly are looking at another CSR bill. So if that goes through, maybe another statutory SI. Is that sustainable? No. Would that attract businesses? I don't think so. In the long term, will it be beneficial to the society? I don't think so. So it's about striking the balance.
Now, in spite of all of these humongous sums you mentioned and the contributions, both statutory and voluntary as well, it's not unusual to hear some, Niger Delta person. I should note that there are many persons within the Niger Delta who identify these interventions and are extremely appreciative of them. There are quite a large number of those. Also, as I was saying, it's not unusual to find some other person or folk who would say that companies like Shell, for example, haven't done anything to improve their personal lot or the lot of their community, or haven't made any interventions at all for whatever reason. How has Shell shown commitment to its host communities, and does Shell remain committed to the sustainable development of these communities?
Absolutely. I talked about we lead in host community trust rollout. We're actually the leading company. And that's not me saying it as a chairperson, it's the regulator, NUPRC, and other stakeholders. That is commitment. It's basically a new law. It's something we are all rolling out, and we are ahead of everybody. And we are doing it exceptionally well. For our onshore production, we require 33 host community trusts. We've set up 31 already. The 2 outstanding are because of internal issues, which we are working with the communities to resolve. They are basically internal issues, but we've even gone beyond to say, no, we want to help you resolve this so that we can set up the host community trusts. Yeah? And that's another 3% of operating cost for the previous year for each of those communities. That's a lot of money. So in terms of commitment, it is there. Leading in HCDT rollout is not something that happened by mistake. It was deliberate. We have an integrated team. We set up a very strong team. We started engagement very early, while others were still asking questions. We worked very closely with NUPRC, made sure we made our own inputs early, even before they came out with the regulations, and those are the results you're seeing. That is commitment. It's not happenstance. We really are committed, and that commitment will continue.
Oh, like you did say, and rightly so. It has been reported, and not by Shell, but by the regulators, that Shell is leading as far as the transition from the Global Memorandum of Understanding, the GMOU, to the Host Communities Development Trust at the HCDT, of course in accordance with the provisions of the PIA, formerly the PIB. How is that working out thus far, and what have been the results of that, of this lead that Shell is making? Excellent,
but we don't want to be complacent. So we always want to, be on our toes, make sure that we are still striving to improve. It's not perfect. There are still areas where we are pushing ourselves to improve, but it's been really, really good. 31 over 33 is fantastic. For littoral communities, we are waiting on the regulators to give us the list of littoral communities that we will handle, and then we'll start the set. We already have the team ready to go. So it's been a good experience, but also difficult. It's a learning experience also for the communities, because HCDT is very structured, and the structure is quite good. You have the board of trustees, that's the structure at the helm. Then you have the management committee, basically to execute, manage the budget, execute, monitor projects. Then you have advisory committee, basically the link between the community and the settlers. We are settlers, the operators, help with disseminating information, helping to ensure the operating environment is enabling and all that. So fantastic structure. Kudos to the lawmakers, and also kudos to NUPRs, who have been very good regulators of the process.
I know you've touched on it somewhat from your response thus far, but if you could expand it, what purpose precisely does the HCDT serve?
The HCDT basically is the vehicle for delivering social investments to your host community. So we talked about voluntary SI, and I talked about the 4 thematic areas. I talked about health, education, enterprise development, and infrastructure. That's Shell Corporate SI. HCDT is for the communities. They actually decide, they have a needs assessment. So every community, every cluster of communities, because it's not per community, they are clusters. Every cluster, the first step is to do a needs assessment. So you go to the communities and ask, what are your priorities? Where are the gaps? What do you want to do? And then you do that needs assessment. You have a development plan for the community. We call it CDP, Community Development Plan. Then based on that plan, because you send the plan in to NUPRC before they register, before you get approval to incorporate the HCDT. So once you incorporate the HCDT, you set up the BOT, Board of Trustees, Management Committee, Advisory Committee, then you start to implement based on the development plan you've already developed. So already you have a list of things you need to do, and then you use the funds to do what you need to do. The funds itself, the money you pay in, the law is also very prescriptive about how it's going to be handled. So you have the one for projects, you have 5% which is for admin, to run the HCDT itself. Pay allowances, get an office and all that for them. You have 75% which is for projects. So you can use this to do your projects, whatever. If you want to do scholarship for your children that are deserving, if you want to build infrastructure, 75%. 20%, which is very, very important to mention, is to be put in a reserve fund for investment. So for the rainy day, basically. So for the first time, I see a law in Nigeria really going out to say, keep some money aside for the community, so that if Shell lives in 20 years, 30 years, you can use this money to continue to carry out projects in your community. That's 20%. And like I said earlier, already 18 HCDTs have put aside 4.9 billion into their reserve funds.
That also is a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot.
Now, speaking especially from the angle of the communities who are the beneficiaries of the HCDT, how can they leverage on the HCDT and, of course, avoid the pitfalls or the problems with the previous GMOU arrangement to ensure that they are better served, which I perceive is the whole intention of migrating to the HCDT? What pitfalls should they avoid, especially from the GMOU era, to ensure that they are better served even now?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to select the right people, right? Because if you have the wrong people represent you, they have a problem. So we always encourage them to select, don't be sentimental. One good thing that the regulators have done in UPRC is that there's a clear criteria, for you to qualify to be part of the HCDT in terms of experience, qualification. Very, very good. Yeah, so it's not an all-comers affair. But you need to pick the right people to represent you, and then allow them to represent you, if you understand what I mean. And then if you do that, that's the first step. What we've done as SPDC, as Shell, we've also learned from the GMOU experience. One area we used to have issues was accounting, financial reporting. So what we've done, we actually rolled out our HCDTs with a financial reporting software. So that way it's easier to run financial reports. We can run from the office, the secretaries can run. So we can actually, monitor so that if things are not going well, we don't wait till the end of the year to find out. We can actually quickly intervene and solve problems. So that's one thing we did in addition to support the communities with transparency and accountability.
So it looks like the future is bright for the host communities of Shell in the country.
It should be bright, yes.
Now, before I move on from the HCDT and communities, you talked about ensuring that they appoint or select the right persons to represent them on these boards. What is the makeup of the right persons? Politicians, relatives, or traditional rulers? Are they the right persons?
No, politicians will not go. I mean, the regulation doesn't allow for a politician. If you're politically exposed, you cannot be there. Government officials cannot be there. Yeah. So the criteria is very clear. Qualification, number of years, and all that. So that's fine. The communities know their people more than you and I, Dio. So what we are saying is, your children, the members of your community, select the right ones. Don't select out of sympathy. Don't say, oh, this guy has not been doing anything for 10 years, so let him, we want to put him forward to the board of trustees. That's not good enough. Look for the right people who are motivated to serve, and then put them there. I think that's really the point we're trying to make. And the way the regulation has made it, we don't have a role. So it's actually the communities, they sit in a meeting and nominate their people, and they send to us with minutes of meeting. And the minutes of meeting has to go to NUPRC because they want to be sure that the community sat in their town hall or wherever and made those nominations without undue influence. So that's really important. The other thing that gives me a lot of concern is also the way, it goes back to the whole issue around how we manage conflict and disagreements. Part of the challenge we have is a lot of community stakeholders. Once they are not selected, or their preferred candidate is not selected, they go to court to try and stop the cooperation of the HC. They go, a lot of cases. They go to court. Why do you want to deprive your entire community of benefit because you didn't get a place on the board of trustees? Why will you want to do that? So that's another thing that is really not helping. But we actually go out of our way. We sit down with them to try and manage this, do a lot of ADR just to move forward. And that's why we've got 31 out of 33. That's 94%.
Now, moving on from the HCDTs, I asked you earlier in this conversation of tangible evidence of Shell's commitment to Nigeria. You talked about Shell's investment in Nigeria. You mentioned two companies. You mentioned Daystar Power. You mentioned Olon as well. Let's talk about those two for a bit. How has Shell's acquisition of Daystar Power and Olon contributed to the expansion of low-carbon power generation in the country?
A lot. Daystar acquisition was concluded 2022 December, and since then, this is a company that delivers integrated solar solution, mainly to commercial and industrial customers. They are across West Africa, and of course, they are in Nigeria also. One of the big things they did recently was an agreement with Nigerian breweries. So they actually, as we speak, they are setting up a very huge integrated solar solution for Nigerian breweries. About 5,400, 5,000, I don't have the specific numbers, maybe I don't want to give the wrong number, but it's really, really huge. By the time they are done with that, they will reduce their reliance on generators. They do a lot more with solar. That's quite big. Another one, their own approach is impact investment. So they actually encourage, they support, entities that deliver the solar. A lot of companies in the solar and renewable space in Nigeria have gotten support from Olon. Last year, I think they gave about $3.9 million of such support, which helped to connect about 86,000 more people to energy in Nigeria. That is big. That's significant. And the journey continues.
From a government perspective, I know we've talked about people, we talked about our roles in the community, not just the host communities, and not just as it affects Shell or the oil and gas industry, but every other industry. As you identified a while ago, we have an industrial park here in Port Harcourt, Transamadi, and we have industrial parks littered in different places all over the country as well. We want businesses to thrive. We want investments to be sustained and new investments to come in. The people have a responsibility to ensure that happens. But no doubt, government has a humongous responsibility as well to ensure a vibrance in the oil and gas industry and other industries which you've expressed concern for as well. What do we need the Nigerian government to be doing at the various levels to ensure that we can grow these industries and ensure sustained development in the Niger Delta and even beyond Niger Delta as well?
Yeah, for government, it's just mainly in terms of the competitive fiscal terms, enabling the environment, law and order, security. I mean, the things that government should do them well. If they do them well and we have attractive fiscal terms, businesses will come. And that's really what we expect from government. And like I said earlier, we need to watch the taxes, the number of taxes and all that. The burden is huge. I've talked about it. You can imagine if you're a businessman and you're considering which country to take your investment to. Yeah. You look at several countries, and one of the things you look at is how much tax am I going to pay? What am I going to be doing? And if you say, I'll do my social investment and I'll still pay 3% of this, 3% of that, 1%, I mean, you get to a point you say, why not go to the other place where, I don't have to pay that much and I can do my business. That's all that encumbrance.
No, I can't help but come back to the people once again. And you talked about how it's okay to have a grievance, but there are proper ways to express these grievances so we can have a conversation and having discussions about the grievances. It's always better, pays off better than sabotage or destroying facilities or installations or investments for that matter.
Resorting to self-help.
Absolutely. However, these are private. Shell is a private investment with investors who expect returns on investment. The same with other investors, whether in the oil and gas industry or other industries for that matter. As a private citizen, why should I be concerned with Shell or any other person's private investment for that matter? I'm not an investor. I'm not a shareholder in Shell. Why should it concern me what affects Shell or any other business or any other industry for that matter?
It should concern you because it will also affect you. I mean, and the way I look at it is, if our economy is growing, if the economic activities are increasing and all that, everybody benefits. I talked about 2,500 plus workers, right, for Shell. Imagine how many persons each of those workers supports. So there's a multiplier effect, right? Imagine the impact on housing, imagine the impact on businesses in those states. There's an example I don't like to use because each time I talk about it, I feel very emotional and unhappy, and that's worry. Just need to go take a look at worry. If you knew worry in the 90s and you go back to worry today, then this question, you just have gotten the answer to this question. So all those people then who felt there's no impact. Yeah, I don't have any business with Shell. I don't need them. I own a hotel. I have my business center. I don't have any problem with them. You can go shut them down. Everybody's feeling it. Everybody, every sector. So it's the same thing. If the economy is strong, if businesses thrive, everybody will benefit. Even if your business is in the media, you own a radio station, then you have more adverts, right? You have more, you can charge better prices. If you own a school, people can pay your fees. So everybody, the economy is one thing that touches everybody. Why is everybody crying? Why are so many people crying in Nigeria today? It's the economy. Yeah, it's the economy. If the economy was much better, if it's thriving, if it's growing, everybody will be impacted. If it is not, everybody will be impacted. So if we all agree that the energy sector drives the economy in terms of budget revenue, in terms of forex, then why would somebody say, I'm a private guy, it's a private business, so why should I be concerned about them? So we need to help people to continue to make that link. It's a system. You can't be in a system and say the system doesn't concern me, because it will affect you one way or the other. So that's the way to look at it.
Thank you for your time. Do you have any final words?
Yeah, it's just to say thanks for the opportunity to share. And I think I've enjoyed the conversation. And to our people, to the Niger Deltas, to Nigerians, I think we need to keep making the right choices. The impact will be on all of us. The success will be for all of us. Let's have that long-term view of life. It's a dangerous thing to see life from a short-term lens, to say, today, anything can happen tomorrow, because when anything comes, you won't like it. Let's have a long-term view. When we are not happy, when we feel we've not been treated right, we can have a conversation. You can have a conversation. It's a better way than going to destroy, than going to, set up a blockade to stop economic activity that will not impact you eventually. The impact is on all of us. The impact is on all of us, so that's it.
And that's a wrap on this week's edition of Canvas, the Niger Delta Roundtable, brought to you by SPDC. Thanks for being a part of it. We have discussed Shell's unwavering commitment to not just the Niger Delta, but even Nigeria as a whole, and how that this is a catalyst for sustained economic and other kinds of development for the Niger Delta and by extension countries. Where my guest has been Igor Wele, Director and GM Corporate Relations, Shell Companies and Operations in Nigeria. Igor, many thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dayo. Always a pleasure. Apart from the fact that you're an Arsenal fan.
And you wish you were an Arsenal fan.
I've been sitting close to an Arsenal fan for over 1 hour. That's crazy.
A fresh edition comes your way again. Same time, of course. Check out our platforms across different social media pages. Many thanks. I'm Adin Dayo Lushaki. Good day.